Hello, my name is Dr. Tiffany Packer, and it is such an honor to be able to come on here to even simply be considered to be a TED Talk speaker for the TEDx Buckhead Avenue edition, focusing on the audacity of she. And so, my audacious moment, I like to always center around a public history exhibition that my students and I created starting back in 2013 after the police brutality killing slash murder of Jonathan Farrell in Charlotte, North Carolina. So, at the time, I was living in Charlotte, North Carolina, working at Johnson C. Smith University, and I was slated with teaching a public history course that fall. And so, right after the semester started, Jonathan Farrell met his demise at the hands of Charlotte Mecklenburg police officer Randall Carrick. And when I came back to class the following day, my students were so sad. They were so droopy. They were so defeated, and they couldn't even hardly give any eye contact. And I knew why. I knew because they had been so bothered by what had happened to Jonathan Farrell. But there also was a sense of defeat for themselves as people of color, because this story, unfortunately, was just oh so familiar. And so, as a public historian, one of the things that I wanted to empower my students to be able to do was to say, hey, how can we take what Jay-Z said when he said we're going to make the song cry, and how can we make our work cry? How can we take the feelings that we're feeling and put them into action, present it to the community, and be an impactful part of bringing the change? So, very succinctly, I had the audacity to transform my students from being just students to being student activists. So, since this was inspired by Jonathan Farrell, what I challenged them to do was to first, how can we take the story of what happened to Jonathan and humanize it? How can we lift it above the tragedy of it and understand Jonathan for who he was as a person? What were the things that he liked? Who did he love? Who was his family? Who was he left behind? What was he into? What made him smile? What made him tick? And so the idea behind this was that what we have to be charged with doing is lifting victims of our communities from being understood as just statistics to being understood as real people who function in real time. And so in September of 2013, I had a very small number of students, about 5 students. So we developed 5 different people. And we invited the public to come out and to view the public history museum style exhibition that my students co-curated together. Now in 2025, this baby of mine has grown, and we have documented over 100 victims of police brutality. And so what we are saying is that we are the current day Ida B. Wells, the same way that she traveled the country documenting lynching and the victims of it and keeping her own records and making sure that these stories were told correctly. And it's exactly what we are doing by documenting those of police brutality, because civil rights is still an issue. And while we have progressed, there are still things that face us, and police brutality is one of them. And so I believe, with the audacity of she, that we can get up and change this narrative around police brutality by changing how we understand those who are victimized. Because once we understand ourselves as people, maybe forces that be can also understand us for the human beings that we are. And I am a woman who is standing up for my son, for my daughters, for your sons, for your daughters, as we make the change that we want to see. We do not wait for others to do it for us. We do it on our own time, on our own terms. Ashe.